I'm about to say something that's probably going to sound unpopular, probably going to be unpopular with people who are even bothering to listen to this, who don't really share the same views as me. And I'm willing to risk the ire of them because, honestly, it needs to be said. And people in my country and people in neighboring countries who are spouting ignorance are part of an epidemic that I feel has gripped us humans for a very long time. And it's called a lack of empathy and a lack of compassion that it seems to be prevalent nowadays. What I'm talking about is currently there's a country called Syria who's in the grips of a terrible war. They're caught between a corrupt government who denied them basic human rights and these militants who use a faith that they obviously do not understand to try to brainwash citizens into causing horror and destruction. And between the corrupt government and these militants, their lands have been destroyed. Their cities completely bombed, family members torn apart by death and destruction. So, to get away from this war-torn land that they were horribly dying in, they start going to other countries as refugees. And instead, these countries that see the destruction that these people are going through, that see the horrors of this war, you've got people saying, no, we got to close our border. They might be terrorists. No, we got to close our border. We can't afford to take care of them. We got to take care of our own. But what are we doing to take care of our own? That's what I'm asking today. Because people are saying things like, we can't afford to take any more people in. We can't even take care of those that we have here. But these are the same people who will say things, and I've read people who posted shit like this on Facebook, that we need to stop giving welfare to people, that the needy don't deserve our help, or they ain't out there doing clothing drives, they ain't out there trying to feed homeless. All these people touting we need to help our own, but ain't doing anything to help those who are in need, are part of this cancerous problem that we in society have that I call the me syndrome. The me syndrome, where material possession is more important to you than spending time with your family on the holidays, because Black Friday is right around the corner, and I guarantee you there's going to be tons of videos of people fighting over overpriced junk that is only going to be replaced next year. We have rampant consumerism, rampant materialism, rampant selfishness over compassion. And then when you try to show compassion and empathy and kindness towards your fellow man, you're called weak. You're told you're unpatriotic. You're told you just want to side with the evil. No, by being compassionate, I'm siding against the evil. By you preaching that everybody of a certain faith is evil and trying to harm us, you're the one that's being evil. You're the one that's mirroring the exact radicals that you are so afraid of. Now, I had a friend of mine who I really love. She's a good person, a great mother. She got upset because I said yesterday, after reading tons of ignorance on social media, that anybody who finds my compassion and desire to take families in that have gone through hell and back, and that I don't want to see them say, hey, we're letting in terrorists, to unfriend me, she took it personally. And I think she thought that I was going to start unfriending people. No, I said for them to unfriend me because I don't want to see people spouting that. Are you serious? It's like everybody has lost their mind against this one religion and they forget how in history this happened. And I had a friend post that, and another guy countered, well, the Jews didn't have radicals that people could blame for terror, and it wasn't right. It's not right now. Because if you look at the grand scope of things, the amount of people who are known ISIL members, the amount of people who are known Boko Haram members do not in any way reflect the total group of people who represent the Muslim faith. And when people spout hatred and ignorance for a whole group of people based on their faith, they are being as bad as those who passed the Nazi regime. And you can't tell me that they don't. Because you're choosing to hate a person based on their looks and their faith over getting to know a person who could be a very good person. And you don't think that's ignorant and evil? And I said it today, and I said it yesterday as well. I have seen good in people. I've seen tragedy bring humans together. I've seen people do little random acts of kindness that made me say, this world isn't so bad. But then you get inundated, completely inundated by ignorant folks who choose to use fear and hatred and spread mistrust among fellow human beings instead of trying for peace. Every time I've called for peace on my page, every time I said, war is just not working. Us fighting each other is just not working. I've had somebody who I used to have respect for counter me and say, it's the only way. And this is why the cycle keeps repeating. This is why we keep having countries completely destroyed by war, because we as humans cannot get out of this childish mentality that somebody harmed me, so I must do them harm. And I'm not even saying I'm above it, because another person made the reference that it's human nature. And I have to reluctantly agree to that, because I think about things like, if somebody harmed my child, my first instinct is going to be to want to harm that person, even though I don't like violence. And while I try to steer away from that, and I try to live a peaceful, quiet life, I don't know what I would do if I was put in a situation where I know somebody will harm my child. But I'm at least human and decent enough to admit that. I'm also human and decent enough to admit that I have faith in people still. I might not like some of the things people do. I might have had people threaten my life because of my skin tone. I might have had people judge me just by looking at me and make comments about my name, my weight, my age, everything. But it doesn't mean I have to turn around and be bitter and bring that towards somebody else. Because I felt the sting of being hated by people who don't even know me, I know I cannot project that on the other people. There is nothing wrong with being empathetic. There is nothing wrong with choosing love over hate. What's wrong is that we live in a society, in a world where when you choose that, people mistrust you, people deem you weak, people want to make fun of you, and people want to say that you don't have everybody's best interest at heart, when that's the polar opposite. Because I choose love over hate, because I choose not to judge people by their faith or their looks, by how much money they have or how much money they don't have, I am choosing a path that shows care for everyone. And to me, that is way more stronger than putting a gun in my hand and blowing somebody away because they look like a terrorist. Just like I said in my blog about rapists, you cannot stereotype what evil is. You cannot put evil into this little box. So the most normal looking people in the world have done horrible, evil things. One of the most horrible acts of terror on our soil happened in Oklahoma City, and it was not somebody of the Muslim faith that did that. It was not somebody with brown skin that blew up the federal building. It was a guy who was smart enough to know that this kind of terror would strike fear in the hearts of people. It was a guy who called himself a Christian. But nobody's lumping every single Christian in the world to terror. So why is it okay to lump everybody in the Muslim faith as a terrorist? When did this be cool? When did this become the new cool thing to do? It's not right. And then you got people bringing up rhetoric, like, and when you come at me as somebody who's a history buff, you know I'm ready for a debate. I'm going to argue this. Oh, they have antiquated ways, the way they treat their women, they stone people to death. Okay, but they're not the only religion that's done that. And they're not the only religion that continues to do that. We have groups of faith people in this country that have beaten children to death because they wanted to escape their faith. Just last month, there was this Christian cult-like group who beat these two young boys. One died because of their faith. We had the Salem witch trials, which me as a Wiccan woman, I laugh when they talk about how other religions treat their women. I was in a relationship with a guy who's a completely staunch Catholic. You want to talk about how women are treated in faith? You try dating a staunch Catholic guy and telling him that I want to use birth control. I don't want to have children out of wedlock. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Yeah, ain't gonna fly, is it? We need to stop generalizing, and we need to stop making common enemies when we should have more common allies. Another thing is we rely too much on talking heads in the media to tell us how to think, how to feel, and how to act instead of going out and finding facts for ourselves. One of my friends, who I really love dearly, posted a thing about how we're not taking care of Native American citizens on our soil. How some of these reservations are just deplorable the way they're living. And he said this in response to a lot of us calling the reason why we would accept Syrian families here out of their war-torn lands. And I replied to him, yes, I understand that we do need to take care of our citizens here. But a lot of people that are spouting that aren't doing crap to do it. They're not taking time out of their busy schedule to round up clothes. They're not taking busy time out of their schedule instead of doing flighty, frivolous things to bring food to others. I've seen several people use rhetoric like, we need to cut welfare and all these welfare claims, yet in the same breath will say we need to take care of our own. How does that make sense? So then I explained the vetting process for actual refugees to come into this country, because it's not easy to legally come into this country as people would think. And it's the only way to get refugee status is to legally apply for it. You're not just going to come in and say, hey, I'm a refugee, I'm going to crash here. And anybody who's that simple to believe that is part of the problem. You go through a vetting process. They security screen you. They security screen your family. They are taking in the sick, the old, the infirm, and women and children before they just take in young able-bodied males because of that terrorist threat. Okay? These people are going to get social security cards, they're going to get identification, and they're going to be on a watch list for the INS. So you tell me how this is like some golden ticket where everybody's just going to skip in, la la la. You know? I'm so sick of people who don't even bother to learn the vetting process for refugee status, making these broad assumptions and spreading bigotry. It's got to stop. Why do we live in a world where it's so much easier for us to say, don't help this person because we're different, than it is to say we need to love and embrace one each other and bring peace that way, because it's not working the other way. History has shown that it's not going to work. Every generation has gone through some form of war, some form of conflict. I would love to see a generation that doesn't know what war is, that doesn't know what mass conflict and violence and stuff is. And I'm not saying that all of a sudden, within a month, year, or even 10 years, that peaceful approach will work. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take efforts for everybody to make it happen. But we have to be willing to make the steps, and that's the problem. We're not willing to. We are so willing to cling to fear, cling to hatred, and cling to divide because it's easier than saying, you know what, I'm not going to do this no more. I don't want to take the life of my fellow man. I don't want to see with a veil of hatred. I want to open my eyes. I want to embrace and love, because it is so better for this world. All the energy that we take in destroying one another, we could be saving this planet. We could be worried about the shifts in our climates. We could be working on technology that utilizes less resources so that we can share the abundance of more. But we won't do that, because we're stuck in the mentality that we can't. And I honestly don't know what, except for being able to voice my opinion, raise my child under the same opinion, and do little things that I can to help others to change the tide. It feels like I'm climbing up a mountain, and just when I reach a threshold that I say, yes, I'm doing good, I see others doing good, I get hit by a giant boulder of ignorance and knocked back down, and it takes a chunk out of my faith in humanity. And I'm sick of that feeling. I'm sick of feeling like we're never going